space where change and stillness coexist. A place where people can step out their ordinary experience something fleeting. Friendships seen here can be seen as small, timeless, and free from responsibility, yet they linger in memory. Because of the open space, we can see that connection doesn't have to be powerful to be permanent. It passes and it happens and it fades, just like waves returning back to the sea.
Here's a quick overview of our presentation. First, we'll explore how nature shapes Basho's understanding of friendship and impermanence. Next, we'll look at the role of religion during the Edo period and how spiritual ideas like non-attachment help Basho accept the temporary nature of connection. Then, we'll examine how wandering allows Basho to find meaning in solitude and in the brief relationships he encounters along the way. So let's set the scene with some brief context about the novel Okunobo Semishi, where the narrator wrote to the deep north. It's a travel written by 7th century Japanese poet Matsuo Basho. As he journeys through northern Japan in search of spiritual enlightenment, he reflects on life's changing nature. Even his bond with his closest companion, Sora, is marked by partings, reminding us that no relationship can escape the flow of impermanence.
This sense of delicate impermanence is captured clearly in Baijo's admiration of the banana plant. Scholar Donna H. Sharkey states that Baijo identified with loneliness and vulnerability. Instead of resisting these fragile emotions, he chose to embrace them. Let the plant, relationship with delicate and free, which is precisely what makes them beautiful. For Baijo, friendship wasn't escape from solitude, but rather something that emerged from it.
Basho's acceptance of permanence symbolized by the banana plant is also reflected in the religious idea that appears throughout Basho's journey. But religion wasn't its main focus, writing hints at the shift of the unstable Sengoku period to the peaceful Edo period. As suggestive of waves returning and passing, similar aspects of the religious, since it plays a key role in accepting life's impermanence, no matter the scenario, reminding us of our limited time and helping us understand our own suffering.
Wandering might at first sound like being lost, but for Basho, it was a mindful, almost meditative practice. Scholars on his page calls it a method of concentrating on the way. Basho paid attention to the small fleeting things, such as a bird's call, a companion's presence, or the shape of a tree, reflecting Zen values of non-attachment and impermanence. He didn't cling onto things, instead he welcomed them and let them go, finding beauty in their brevity. Wandering wasn't an escape, it was how he connected to the world and to himself. The final two hemispheres in Basho's Okunobo Semichi show the beach's dual nature. At Guru Beach, he's alone. As Sora has left, and nightfall brings a pervading sense of isolatedness. His IQ, between wave and wave, mingling small shells, haji dust, captures a fleeting connection. The shells briefly touch, like companions, before drifting apart. Haji, a plant's whose kanji translates to autumn grass, evokes a sense of ending due to its ties to the season. Basho didn't seek comfort in solitude, instead he calmly accepts his solitude and reflects on its deeper meaning through his observations, poetry, and empathy. At the shore near Ogaki, Basho reunites with Sora and friends, describing the scene as, quote, like being restored to life. Yet even here, impermanence lingers. His haiku, cramped, shell and uninspired, the burning fall, shows how even reunion can carry the weight of departure. Imagery like climb separating from shell may represent a painful yet inevitable separation. The two seeds complement each other. One begins in solitude, the other in connection. Yet the shared setting near the shore reinforces the meaning of the beach, and how companionship and solitude aren't opposites. Neither one fears the other. They coexist, interconnected, rising and falling like waves.
So to tie everything together, we can think of Basho's journey as a sine wave, like the rise and fall of tide. Each peak and dip reflects a stage in his journey, and just as one way fades, another one opens. Waves perfectly encapsulates the rhythm of friendship and solitude through his travel. For stage one, wandering and exploration, Basho and Sora begin the journey with moments of delight and lightheartedness. Wandering became a key joyful moment of experiencing the world, the celebration of a permanence through exploration. In this sense, traveling is seen as one of life's pleasant moments of appreciating new discoveries. For stage 2, we have isolation within wilderness. At times, Basha is alone in nature and is guided by the Buddhist idea of samsara, the notion of birth and death. The beach becomes a space for quiet reflection, where solitude becomes both vast and comforting, which marks a shift inward, as you can see over here. Through the beach, we have the choice to sit alone or with friends, which causes awakening to one's loneliness. As for stage 3, we have spiritual awakening. Beach often act as a metaphor for transition. Basho stands between the land and the sea, the memory and the present. It's a subtle space where he encounters relationship as brief but deeply meaningful, which is a fleeting up moment. And lastly, we have stage 4, karmic enforcement. Influenced by the Buddhist teaching, Basho sees karma not as a punishment, but as a path. The beach, ever-changing, symbolizes how our choices shape our future, and believes that the cycle of suffering can be either continue or push us through peace.
So looking at this pattern, we're able to tell that relationships rise and fall. They come and go. You may be wondering, if all relationships are temporary, why do we still hold on to them? Our answer to that is simple, because to be human is to connect, even if it means knowing that it won't last forever. If they lasted forever, we might take them for granted, but their brevity is what makes them precious. Basho's view of companionship reflects his environment, beliefs, and his deep connection to nature. Drawing from Edo period values, such as Zen and Buddhism, he shows us that friendship isn't just surface level, it's both enduring and fleeting. Like ocean waves, it rises and falls, and that balance of connection and impermanence is what makes it meaningful.
That wraps up our presentation. Thank you for joining us on this brief journey. Like Basho's path, a American shore that we hope stays with you. We would also like to thank Professor Yusuf and Mrs. Sweeney for the guidance support throughout this process.
What time is it? We have time for just a few questions. If anybody in the audience has any, don't be shy. Yeah. My enthusiasm always causes reverb.
So my question is for the first group, it's just a clarifying question. You talk about Basho establishing this relationship with nature that overcomes narcissism. Can you explain this risk of narcissism that Basho overcomes?
Okay, so yes. So narcissism basically is what overtakes someone when one has an ego, more or less. And Basho's entire goal throughout his journey is to let go of his ego and to become one with nature. As I said previously, many people interpret him as someone who observes nature from a distance. However, his entire goal is to integrate within nature itself in order to overcome his own ego. For example, in the poem, in the haiku I had presented, it specifically demonstrated that there's no imposed interpretation. There's no need for you to, there's no forced interpretation onto you. It's your own path to choose how you interpret that poem. And that's basically how he lived his life. He lived his life as a participant within the occurrences in nature, making a companion for him to grow as a person and grow with nature itself. And avoid narcissism. Great.
Does anybody have any questions for the second group? Yeah.
You might just got it.
No, I got it.
You got it.
Where'd you get the idea for the sine wave and friendship? That was great.
This might sound crazy, but it was 12 o'clock in the morning, and I was like just thinking about math and different equation, and I just thought like, wow, sine wave kind of looks like what we're talking about basically. impermanence. There's always ups and downs in life, and I was kept thinking about like the positive and negative, and then there's the in-betweens. And that's how I kind of come up with this notion of the sine wave being brought up for a graph, because throughout Basho's journey, there were always ups and downs. There was always friendship and loneliness, and there's always in-betweens. So that's why I chose the sine wave as a symbolism for his journey.
All right, well, that is all the time we have for this first presentation group. Let's get one more big round of applause from both groups. Thank you for starting our presentation. All right, great. Gloria, come. You're gonna earn the VIP pass, right? See if you're.
Hello? Testing 1, 2. Good luck.
Sorry, they got pulled up from further. Here.
Well, there's
So seniors who are just kind of hanging out throughout the days, we usually consolidate in the back, those last 2 rows. Because we have to fill up, like you guys right there, there's gonna be a class that comes through, and then they're gonna be like, where do I sit? Because they have to walk by you. So all of you move back, fill up those back rows and just consolidate. So anybody who's just 2 people in a row, 3 people in a row, actually you're back 2 rows, you're fine. 1 person. Are you with my class? All right, so when they come, you sit with them. Back 2 rows. And then we do that throughout the 2 days. All the seniors who are presenting, back 2 rows. If you need a third, we take a third. It takes, I get used to it, after a year. Test, test.
Test, test. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test.
Okay, my turn.
Hello? Yeah. Hello?
I was in a rush and I walked up to the student. I was like, I'm gonna put this in there. Like, no. I was there. Boxing, like, who the fuck are you?
You just responded. My pocket 36 and such. Are we really supposed to prepare for next 9 hours, maybe? Guys, okay, when are they gonna be here? Guys, please don't get it. I checked the schedules. Okay. Yeah, everybody. Oh, you're the late ready. No, she's definitely.
How was that? No, I didn't hear the name. No, I'm out. I'm out. He has more hair than he has more hair than me. I care.
Huh? Yeah. I'm gonna give it to you by the end of the day, alright? Or an hour.
Oh, you know, I was gonna ask you the day. I was gonna You're in it? Oh. Well, now it might be a little too far to call to I let's go now. Let's go. No, I made this one setting up already. I'm Wait, isn't it closed? It's closed. Oh, yo, we go to the kitchen. Look at that. Come on, that's a great coffee. And it's right here. Let's put on the seats. Yeah.
Can you get me cake? Can you get me cake? Where's cake?
Hello, it's chocolate. I lost half the I lost half the class. No, I haven't.
All right, find a seat. There are lots of single open seats if you're still looking. But we're in pretty good shape with time, so everyone just make sure you find a seat. And we'll be with you momentarily. Very quiet. Momentarily, it's like, you talking for like a minute, and we'll be with you. But just make sure you have an actual seat. If you need help, our ushers over there will help you. And Professor Lasser will take over in a minute. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Yay! All right. Welcome to day 2 of the symposium. We've got a great group set up for you today. The theme of this little group is called Friendship in Emma, and we have 2 presenting groups. We'll start off with the first one. Their presentation is titled "Pretty Rich and Scheming When Friendship Isn't Friendly." Please welcome Pooja Biswa, Chloe Guthrie, Taylor Lynn, and Raji Sharma, and Sarah Yahuda. And I will remind you, we will have time for questions after each group, so please, 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 as these presentations are going, if you have any questions, just keep them in the back of your mind and save them for when we have a conversation. Okay?
Before we begin, our group would like to pose a situation. Imagine this: the one person you share fond memories with, trusted, is now a stranger. Conversations between the 2 of you realize something unsettling. Your friendship has been compromised.
In today's presentation of Pretty Rich and Scheming When Friendship Isn't Friendly, we will be highlighting the real causes behind bad friendship. Not just the red flags, but the cracks hidden beneath the surface.
Since our password is now compromised, we need a new one. From now to the end of the presentation, we'll work towards finding one of the 4 letters of our new password.
Emma by Jane Austen follows Emma Woodhouse, a wealthy, self-assured woman who plays matchmaker. In a more modern context, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado explores the author's experience in an emotionally abusive same-sex relationship, revealing how intimacy can blur the line between care and control. Confident in her judgment, Emma meddles in her friends' love lives, especially Harriet Smith. The result? Misunderstandings, manipulation, and imbalance. Our thesis declares that the core of bad friendship is power plays, which blur boundaries and poor communication, which stifles our ability to self-actualize.
So we ask, what makes a bad friendship? Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics explains the need for good friends. Quote, people in the prime of their life need friends if they are to accomplish noble deeds. He outlines 3 types of friendships: utility, pleasure, and virtue.
Emma and Mr. Knightley's relationship is a strong example of what Aristotle calls a friendship of virtue, a connection based on mutual respect, honesty, and desire for each other's growth. Mr. Knightley challenges Emma when she's wrong, not to criticize her, but because he wants her to become her best self. And he tells her, I blamed you and lectured you, and you have borne as no other woman in England would have borne him. This quote shows that their friendship is built on trust. They support each other, not out of convenience, but because they genuinely value one another's character. That's what makes their bond both transparent and lasting.
Now, friendships of utility are based on mutual benefit. Aristotle writes, if they are no longer pleasant or useful, they stop being friends. Mr. Knightley and Emma echoes this, saying, quote, how can Emma imagine she has anything to learn herself? And as for Harriet, I will venture to say that she cannot gain by the acquaintance. Harsh, but Mr. Knightley's views align with Aristotle's. Their friendship lacks love, but does this make it bad? Emma and Harriet's bond is superficial. In Emma's perspective, the 2 of them have a friendship of utility. Emma uses Harriet to push her own agenda of matchmaking schemes. Austen goes as far as saying that Harriet would be useful to Emma as a companion, a clear example of utility. Harriet, meanwhile, thinks their friendship of pleasure, finding pleasure in gaining Emma's attention, quote, only desiring to be guided by anyone she looked up to. The friendship lacks depth, virtue, and love, making it ambiguous at best. So, what defines a good versus bad friendship? Montaigne, in the Complete Essays, believed that friendship outside of romance is the highest bond not engineered, but authentic. He writes that friendship cannot be compared to love. Now, in the Dream House, Carmen Maria Machado describes her abusive relationship as both friendly and romantic, showing that friendships can mask themselves in intimacy. What makes a friendship bad aside from the abuse? The answer? Identity and virtue. Identity means knowing oneself, and virtue means understanding one's values. According to Montaigne, true friendship brings out one's true self. Carmen's relationship, however, made her question her identity and worth. From the self-action to feeling not worthy of love, Carmen hid under walls of someone that she wasn't. The pressure to portray the perfect queer relationship of a community that was still fighting for their right to love forced her into authenticating a version of herself that completely contradicted her identity. Though not as extreme, Emma does something similar to Harriet. She manipulates Harriet away from Mr. Martin. Emma reshapes her to better fit the marriage market. The friendship isn't grounded in truth, but in control and deception. Following Montaigne's argument, true friendship unites 2 people. There's no me, there's no you, just one shared soul. This image of Emma and Harriet's bad friendship aligns with Montaigne's poetic way of saying that real friendship involves total trust, mutual understanding, and deep unity. Philosophically, a bad friendship distorts identity, lacks genuine love, and reflects incompatible values. So, the first letter of our password is R for relations. We spent the last few minutes analyzing different types of friendships based on utility, pleasure, and virtue. So it's only appropriate that the first letter represents such.
So let's further explore how power imbalances shape relationships in Emma and in the memoir In the Dream House. Even though one is a lighthearted novel and the other is a dark memoir, both reveal how control can disguise itself as care. Emma often believes she's helping her friend Harriet, though Emma's guidance isn't collaborative, it's controlling. She decides what's best for Harriet without ever truly listening to her. In this way, she controls her, making Harriet no better than a puppet on a string. Emma even says that she would form her opinions and her manners. This line supports literary scholar Janet Todd, who points out in her article, Female Friendships and Power Relations with Jane Austen, that Austen's friendships are rarely equal, and often marked by a subtle dominance or emotional manipulation, typically under the guise of care or improvement. This dynamic directly correlates to the relationship in the memoir. In this case, there are two women involved in a romantic relationship, Carmen and the unnamed woman. The unnamed woman emotionally abuses Carmen by gaslighting and putting her down. Just like Emma's control was under the guise of care, the unnamed woman's control is disguised with passion. One moment that exemplifies this dynamic is when the unnamed woman tells Carmen, "You're not allowed to write about this." Just like Emma stifles Harriet's independence by making choices for her, this command strips Carmen of her voice, both literally and emotionally. In the article, Queer Dynamics of Emotional Abuse in Carmen Maria Machado's In the Dream House, Isabel Labors emphasizes a line from the book. "You were dropped from the boat of the world, climbed onto a piece of driftwood together, and after a perfunctory period of pleasure and safety, she tried to drown you." This shows Carmen's lack of emotional stability. She becomes reliant on the unnamed woman's guidance, just like Harriet depends on Emma. In both books, we see how unhealthy power imbalances can shape relationships. Emma's misguided attempts to improve Harriet and the unnamed woman's emotional manipulation of Carmen both show that when one person holds too much influence, it stifles the other's independence. Power imbalances and equality cannot coexist in a healthy relationship. With that being said, the next letter of our password is I. It stands for imbalances, which clearly are the center of the friendships in these two books.
We all have boundaries. Boundaries are one of the most important parts of a friendship. Emma's interference exposes her lack of ability to respect Harriet's life. Looking from the outside of the friendship, Emma's actions appear more controlling than caring. Emma sees Harriet as a blank slate onto which she can project her ideals. So when Emma reflects on her plan to get Harriet away from Robert Martin, she thinks Mr. Elton was the very person fixed on Emma for driving the young farmer out of Harriet's head. She thought would be an excellent match. The word fixed is important. Emma doesn't suggest or hope, she decides. This language highlights Emma's belief in her superior judgment. Emma projects her romantic ideals and social ambitions onto Harriet, who acts as a vessel. Emma's self-righteousness is one of the most damaging parts of the friendship. Her sense of entitlement stems from her privileged position in society. Emma had lived nearly 21 years in the world with very little to distress or vex her. Emma's unchecked privilege and self-assurance are portrayed not as evils, but as unrecognized dangers, ones that make her blind to the way she erases Harriet's autonomy while believing that she herself is being kind. Even after Harriet is humiliated by Mr. Ellen's rejection, a result of Emma's manipulation, she continues to idolize Emma. She could have never deserved him, and nobody but so partially kind as a friend as Miss Woodhouse would have thought it possible. Harriet blames herself for the heartbreak, not Emma, revealing how Emma has shaped Harriet's perception of herself. From a psychological standpoint, this dynamic may be connected with the principles of learned helplessness, a psychological state where an individual believes that they have no control over their situation and stop trying to change it. Additionally, attachment theory suggests an emotional reliance on dominating figures is a need for self-validation. In terms of self-validation, Emma initially boosts Harriet's confidence by treating her as a social equal. Yet this validation is rooted more in Emma's desire to mold Harriet for who she is than a genuine affirmation of who she is. Ultimately, Emma exposes the danger of relationships without boundaries, especially when one person takes authority over another's personal life. Emma's friendship with Harriet is not based on equality or respect, but on a fake sense of superiority. So with that being said, our third letter is F, representing how friendship can quickly turn into dependence, and how lines can be so easily manipulated.
There are three different types of manipulation between Harriet and Emma's relationship. There's emotional, psychological, and social manipulation. Social manipulation is present in Harriet and Emma's relationship when the differences between Harriet and Emma's social standings made it imperative for Harriet to follow Emma's suggestions to climb up the social ladder. This can be seen when Emma craves
who is of an authoritative standing, creates a safe and secure relationship. That's why she chose Mr. Martin as a person of interest. Knowing this, Emma chooses to introduce Mr. Elton as a viable option, changing Harriet's goal to finding romantic love to one that serves her socially and economically. Thus, the last letter of a new password is toxicity that's present in Harriet and Emma's relationship.
So why is all of this important? Well, we all have friends, whether good or bad, and through this research and understanding of what defines a bad friendship, we can better recognize and build healthier ones. Even harmful relationships offer lessons, showing us the values that make true friendship possible. Using the password RIF, we can identify what makes a bad friendship is when relation is overshadowed by control, imbalance distorts the dynamic,
Friendship turns into dependence, and toxicity replaces trust.
Thank you. And here we are, we're excited. Any questions?
Remember to save questions for after this next group presents. Speaking of the next group, presenting Jane Austen's Emma, The Fine Line Between Motivation and Manipulation are Selena Lee, Jingjiang Ping, Ian Yu, and Stephanie Zhang.
We use the term friendship quite liberally, but have we ever stopped to consider what it means and between which people can exist? That's exactly what we're going to be exploring here. So before we get there though, answer me this. Say you have a job. Could you be friends with your boss? Could a friend be your boss? Put up a 1 if yes, and a 2 if no. Unfortunately for all the ones out there, friendships between leaders and followers, employers and employees in our hypothetical situation are more complicated than they can seem. Complicated how? Well, we have concluded that in Jane Austen's Emma, people in leader-follower dynamics are not true friends, because leader-follower dynamics and friendships are fundamentally incompatible. Here we have our table of contents, a map of steps we're going to take on our journey to leader-follower friendships in Emma. First, we will establish our definition of friendship through a close study of our research and an analysis of anti-friendships in the movie Clueless, a related text outside of Emma. Next, with this definition in mind, we will determine whether relationships with Emma qualifies friendships. Then we will repeat these same steps for leader-follower relationships in Clueless, Dangerous Liaisons, and other related texts, and Emma. So, friendship. Our definition of friendship is a combination of universally accepted truths about friendship, our own personal experiences, and our observations about Clueless and Emma. The focus of this section will be the research. Diane Just emphasizes mutual attitudes of affection and the desire to quote, promote each other's well-being and quote her definition. Obvious as it sounds, friends should want the best for each other, and the friend being helped should be able to decide what the best means to them. As we will see later, this is more complicated in practice than it is in theory. According to Elsie Claude's first sentence, there is no call upon us to change their ways in true friendships. Friendships can be a positive influence. It can build people to be better versions of themselves, but before that can happen, friends must accept one another. Dorothy Afraid goes on to split friendship into categories. Unlike pleasure and utility friends who have friendships for personal gain, who put their own wants and needs before all else, true friends care for each other. There exists an unconditional and reciprocal care in these friends. All that is to say that true friendships to us are relationships in which all parties accept each other as they are and want only the best for one another. We're going to use Clueless, a modern movie adaptation of Emma, to show you what friendships should look like. Hopefully then you'll have a better understanding of what they should look like. Sheriff Horowitz, he makes friends with Ty Frazier, but for all the wrong reasons. Sheriff says she cares about Ty's reputation, but all she really cares about is herself. She's more worried about fulfilling her own savior complex than helping a friend in need. As you can see in the quotes above, Sheriff switches up Ty's clothes, instructs her how to act, and isolates her from her admirer, because he doesn't meet her standards. Sheriff changes Ty's entire personality, and after everything is said and done, she is unrecognizable. Friends accept each other for who they are. Even though Sheriff has the power to rewrite the status quo to make your school someplace, Ty is comfortable being her true self. She chooses to uphold it. It's one can seek advice, but it's another to force subjective opinions onto others. Shared process is why teenage has to count. Therefore, for most communities, she is not a parent of time. It's only after Ty reconnect with her true personality and share reflects on her actions that the two reconcile. At that point, they are willing to consider friends. Now that we know what friendships are, we can dive into that. So before looking into the specific relationships within Emma, I would like to give you some comments. So Emma, written by Jane Austen, follows the manipulations and schemes of Harry and Emma Lynn as she attempts to match the exciting tale of Harry. Although Emma and Harry are the main focus of the novel, Emma follows many different relationships and friendships with other characters. One that stands out almost as much as Emma and Harriet do is the friendship between Emma and Mr. Knightley. Although Emma and Mr. Knightley's relationship ends in a more romantic sense, it doesn't change the fact that they were friends first. When we are first introduced to Mr. Knightley, he is described as one of the few people who can see faults in Emma, the only one who told her of that. He doesn't try to kiss up to Emma like everyone else because they are some similar social status. The only difference that truly divides Emma and Mr. Knightley is their gender. However, even that doesn't seem to ruin their relationship the way things like pride and social class ruined Emma and Harriet, which makes them the perfect example of a true friendship by our definition. In contrast, the relationship between Emma and Jane Fairfax is best described as a friendship that could have been. Very early on, Emma and Jane are compared to each other, put against each other if you will. To Emma, Jane is the only person that can keep up with her. Whether it's in appearance, wit, or intelligence, Jane seems to always be better than Emma. According to Ruth Perry in her work Interrupted Friendships with Jane Austen's Emma, she briefly touches upon the unwritten friendship between Emma and Jane. Despite being very similar, the relationship between the two is ultimately held back with societal expectations and a demand for marriage, illustrating this idea that friendships between women are an afterthought when compared to their roles as wives and caregivers, making the relationship between the two women a direct opposite of their definition.
Okay, so now that we've established what we think true friendship is, we're going to be exploring what effect we follow relationships have on these friendships, or we can allow them to happen in those cases. So our definition of what we follow relationship is a relationship between two or more people that feature a clear and balanced influence, which usually manifests in the way one gives each other's thoughts, ideas, and thus their decisions and actions. So, shared short notes their responses based liaisons follows the relationship between the Marquise de Rexuel and the Vicomte de Beaumont, who was a pair sworn to satisfy the love lives of others around them. However, they fight their own unspoken struggle for power by displaying their strengths and others' weaknesses in society. So Rexuel, being a woman in the 18th century, will understandably struggle in the public eye because of the norm imposed on her to be softer spoken and submissive, which is why she thrives in the shadows. In her scheme to ruin Cecile's and her court's romance, she recruits Beaumont to aid her, and she successfully does so by framing him as a hero. The completion of her plan shows another scheme well done, and highlighting her shared desire for love and revenge. By doing this, she manipulates him into having a looking for her, all while keeping her reputation intact. But on the flip side, there's almost nothing that Beaumont, being a man during this time period, can do to lose his standing in society, and he uses his privilege to retaliate against Mertuel's manipulation. In response to her proposal to seduce Cecile, Beaumont teases Mertuel by flaunting his freedom he possesses by bringing up Madame Chorbel, making it clear to her that the potential victims of his emotional conquest remain open beyond just what she tells him. While Alexander merely mitigates the effects of her influence, he takes it a step further by exposing Mertuel's involvement in Cecile's eventual seduction to her. So to sum things up, Mertuel plays for her strength of wordplay and cunningness to consolidate power over Beaumont, while Beaumont exploits Mertuel's fragile reputation to consolidate power over her. This continuous fluctuation in this leader-follower relationship is why the pair were and never could be true. So diving back into Clueless, Scheer initially plays this clear dominant role in the pair's transformational dynamic, which we define as leader-follower dynamic, where the leader provides inspiration and motivation for followers to change and grow for the better. But upon befriending Ty, she immediately gets to work changing her sense of style and physical body, which justifies her actions by claiming to be rescuing her from teenage hell. While it's arguable that Scheer does provide Ty with his motivations to change for the better, she effectively dictates her high school experience in the process, which makes it really difficult to label this as a. But a series of unfortunate events prompts Scheer to reevaluate herself and come to terms with the fact that being a self-appointed lifesaver for others is doing more harm than good. Her pride, wealth, and popularity became increasingly relevant in her interactions as she became more humble, generous, and considerate of others, which opens the door to a mended relationship with Ty. She becomes less of an oppressor and more like a peer, which is another reason why we believe that these two are now. So from these two supporting media, we can learn that selfish urges may make it impossible for relationships to move towards deeper emotional bonds, but true friendships can still grow if one and/or both participants learn to set aside their differences. Now our final question is this: which direction will play out?
Austin's Emma, Emma's selfishness acts as a roadblock which prevents her friendship with Harriet to the very end, as it causes her to control Harriet while dismissing her feelings. In the first quote, it may seem like Emma is allowing Harriet the freedom to choose whether or not she wants to accept Mr. Martin's proposal. Her claiming hesitation as a sign to reject him is manipulative, as it makes her advice seem like objective truth when in reality it's a display of her. The fact that Emma points out Harriet would take on the title of Mrs. Robert Martin of Abbey Mill Farms, and that is why she cannot visit Harriet, shows that Emma's attempts to elevate Harriet's status is not from a place of care, but is instead trying to shape Harriet into someone worthy of being. The way Emma desires to change Harriet in a controlling way is exactly why leader-follower dynamics cannot truly work together. So, is a friendship with your boss possible? Yes, leader-follower dynamics and friendships are incompatible, but that only means that they cannot coexist. By honestly self-examining and considering others, two friendships can still develop if parties are able to separate the leader and follower aspects from their relationship. So yes, you can be friends with your boss when you can separate your work life and your personal life. So this is how we're excited. Thank you for your time.
Another round of applause for these two groups, please. And we got that down to questions. Anybody in the audience? Yeah.
Question for the first group, what made you guys come up with the idea for the password?
Originally, we were thinking about how sometimes when we were making friends, it's like really good, but then eventually, like some bad friendships, like signs started showing up, and it's kind of like a virus or like a corruption of some sort. So then we kind of like played on that thought that like bad friendships are kind of like viruses to good friendships. They're not like just like how viruses are not in every single computer, or like how bad friendships are not all friendships are bad. We kind of played into that thought, and how we could always fix good friendships. We could always fix friendships in general, and that's how we came up with that idea.
I also wanted to add that there's many stages to a friendship. So with each different letter being covered, it's a different stage of like the blueprint that we're making to show that this is an example of a bad friendship. So with every stage, like as she said with the computer, it's like a virus. Like you're learning more and more at the end. Like you have a complete password that's like fulfilling everything, every like checkbox.
Right, and also not every virus so-called has a specific password. There's a password to every individual computer. So by that like philosophy, I guess, RIP isn't necessarily a password made for every single friendship, but it's a good blueprint towards building a better friendship.
AJ.
Question for the first group. In your opinion, do you think every friendship can be saved?
Well, I think it's important to bring up that by the end of Emma did realize the error in her ways, and she came to terms, she acknowledged that what she did was wrong. So I feel like if you have it, as we said, it all comes from yourself. If you can understand who you are and who you want to be, then it's definitely salvageable. But if you're trying to change someone that is just not ever gonna change, then it's impossible. It all comes from the person.
In the beginning, we mentioned self-actualization, and as Sarah said, in order for you to, a friendship, it does go both ways. For you to be friends with someone again after, if they did something bad, you need both of the reach self-actualization. They both need to release that what they did was wrong, and they both need to realize that that a friendship does go both ways.
Yeah, and also this reminded me of like you need to learn to love yourself before you can learn to love others, and this can be applied within friendship as well. Because if you, again, self-actualization, if you don't know who you are internally, this goes back to philosophy. You can't necessarily put in effort into someone else or a relationship or a friendship with someone else. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Go for it.
Your topic about friendships, like maybe with you like friends, like peer friendships, but you use examples from people like in more romantic relationships, I believe. Why is that?
Okay, so with Emma and Harriet, that's a platonic friendship, and then with Carmen and the unnamed woman, it starts off as a platonic friendship, but then it merges into a romantic one, and we wanted to display the differences between a purely platonic friendship versus a platonic into a romantic one, so you know how to, I guess, apply this to your own personal lives, to so you know, like the call signs and this, like, I guess, check boxes between the two. And continue to watch me, a homosexual relationship between the two women in the dream house and a completely platonic one in Emma is such like a different contrast from each other that it's important that we have these differences so we can connect these two and get more nuances out of both of them.
Some of the other questions for the second.
Yeah, a couple, great.
Would you guys assert that compatibility within a friendship is directly proportional to the amount of power each person has in the friendship?
I think there's some, there's definitely some magnitude, I believe, because let's say like, because I'm a stage director, and let's just say like I'm friends with my people in the band department, right? And maybe like it's different between me and my band people and like me and a teacher, you know, because I feel like it's really, really easy for me to become friends with my band people because, you know, we don't have that much difference. I'm just like, you know, I'm their age, I take the same classes they do. But as for like me and a teacher, there's going to be like, they have like maybe 10 plus years of experience on me in certain fields. So I think there would be some magnitude. All of that.
I would also like to say that bosses and like employees, for example, can be friends, but that's if they can separate their work lives from their personal lives. That's if they can set aside that work dynamic and focus on being friends and having the dynamic that friends would have. So in that case, we would say that they're kind of mutually exclusive, even if they both have these roles in certain parts of their lives.
Yay! We all have these friends.
So I just wanted to ask the question about like if parents can be friends with their child. Like there's a lot of times like the dynamic where like both the parents and child are benefiting from each other, but also like obviously there's the power dynamic where like the parent, the adult, they should know more of their child and the child should be receiving whatever they're getting from the parent. But I'm just like guessing like can parents be friends with their children?
I think that's a really good question. Thank you, by the way. I think it depends on like the parenting technique. Like, I'm Asian, so my parents usually like to assert their power, and that's just their preference, and that's what works in our household. But I imagine that some households might be different. Some households might prioritize teaching a child to become an adult, so therefore the power dynamic is more level in that situation. But in my household, it's more of I say, you do. It works, but in that case, I would say that this kind of relationship strays farther away from that equal relationship that we usually like hold
about all the time we have. One last big round of applause.
You're done. Both hands, floor. Good. All right, somebody's going to get the other two. Somebody's going to get the other two. All right, can you do to the ushering and name tag? Professor his, okay, you got it?
What are the name tags?
Where to college?
Taylor, yours is so loud. No, it was like, I feel like I'm the only one. Girl, I also studied it. It's okay. Could you tell? No. Really? No one did that. Can you get it for me? I remember making a mistake. Oh my god, did you tell you? You got Humanities. No more pins after the because you got into the program.
Oh, she told me that she was going to tell me something else and everything like that. And I kind of knew that she was going to commit. Well, she wasn't going to commit to that. Not she was going to. Yeah, but then like she told me that like no, as in like she's not going to go there for 4 years. Oh, yeah. So I already knew that she's probably not going to stay there. Oh, God. But that's fine.
I think she's gone.
I think we were starting to
I don't know if you did it.
yeah, I also did it. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that either. And get it rid of.
Are you ready for this? How'd it go?
You're asking if you could start at the second row. Can we start at the second row?
Yeah. Well, the second row.
Did I come over here? Just start her up. Two rows.
The matching suits. Yeah, I think so.
You know what Mr. Dunbar is?
Wait for them
Always tell Juan come say hi. We miss you.
Just wait for them to.
I heard the bars are telling me your presentation is sounding very good.
We're practicing right now.
Great, great, great.
So we're asking who's available.
How long? There you go. Good running away. Go catch one on the outside if you want to get food.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, again, all seniors who are presenters, we need you in the back 2 rows. As you saw last band, it was pretty filled. So it'll vary throughout the day, but just in case, we need to consolidate in the back there. So like, everyone go back 2 rows. And when we say consolidate, like, you need to move all the way to the end of the aisles, because we'll have kids who are coming in late take those seats. So if you're a judge, front row. Everyone else, back 2 rows. Mr. Pinsky, where's your, so that 3rd row? So Mr. Krinsky's class, 3rd row from the top. All of the seniors, the back 2 rows.
Right next to the thing, so you should probably change. And I was like, congratulations on your promotion.
Hey!
Congratulations on your internship promotion. Congratulations on being fired, actually. You might as well have that. So you're great. So now you can get right? Did you see the pictures? I don't want to see them. Oh my god. Sorry, I don't even want to see them. They're very Olivia, just make sure no one takes the liquids to look at himself.
I don't know how to play, guys.
He's like,
Have you seen her try to hold up both the first time?
that was, but I fixed it the second time.
And I made a sound out of it.
It's like easier to teach them. Because you're like, I'm using But also like just like he cannot say that. See, he complains and things like and you just don't like hear
So I'm passing the class. Yay! I think so. So I did not attend a single class.
Guys, move all the way to the end, all the way to the end.
oh my god, I went biking yesterday and the first like and there's supposed to be some girl that like over there, like my dad's basically, and he's like, I can give you $100 and you can bike on that hill without stopping and else. This is not the part of the house, not another tool. You made it like
This whole road here, get up, we go all the way to the end. All the way to the end. All the way to the end.
You really like pretend like you're low and natural nature of it. It's very good. It's really proud of yourself.
you can do a lot of people. Just not that. And also, there's always going to be I hate you.
Excuse me, are we ready to go? Yeah? Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Humanities Symposium. I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, Professor Oliviera.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to have a set of 11 presentations, Friendships in the Novels of Toni Morrison. Our first group will be Asta Patel, Angel Rahman, and Joseph Gupta.
Good morning, everybody. We will be discussing the weight of friendship, the thin line between destruction and redemption in Morrison's Beloved. You have Josephine, Asta, and Angel.
Some of you might recognize this memes and picture, but the real question behind this is, what happens when the people who save us are the ones who destroy us? These pictures and memes shows complicated relationship in which characters are caught between love and destruction. This complexity is painfully real for enslaved people, especially Black women like Sata in Morrison's Beloved. Before we dive deeper, let's explore how slavery sets the stage in Beloved. Slavery broke families apart. It took away their stability and forced them to suffer both physically and emotionally. In the book, this is symbolized by Sate's scar, described as the choke cherry tree. This tree-like scar represents the deep enduring impact of slavery on Sate's body and soul, mirroring the dehumanization and disillusionment.
So this form of slavery then plays a role in shaping the bonds between characters like Paul B, Seta, Amy, Ella, Denver, and Beloved. Morrison goes on to present friendship as an evolving force that is neither wholly redemptive nor destructive, but marked by elements of both healing and suffocation. So first, let's define what friendship looks like in Beloved. French philosopher Michel de Montaigne described a specific kind of friendship he termed perfect friendship. He states that friends have to progress and advance by driving along the same path in the same convoy, and we must frequently bump and jostle against each other. Montaigne is explaining that there is equality in the aspects of familiarity, shared experience, understanding, authenticity, and vulnerability, which contributes to a sense of self and individual development. While not all friendships can be perfect, it does not mean friendship cannot exist in other relationships, as they can still fit the criteria. So, along with the female friendships in Beloved, the familial and romantic relationships are referred to as friendships as well. In these friendships, trauma is an ever-present force.
In Catherine Jasper's article, The Communication of Trauma and Monastic Friendship, trauma is defined as a reliving of suffering. Only the saved suffer through this temporal existence because through their labors, salvation was a reward. The main characters, being unproved survivors of similar trauma, suffer in their living. Whether it was slavery or another kind of dehumanization and exploitation, the effects follow them even after this experience has since passed. Beloved herself acts as the embodiment of these effects, specifically the consequences of slavery for House 124. Trauma, like Beloved, causes the necessary conflict that the others work to overcome together, leading to their own healing. This can be seen in the significant female friendship of Amy, Denver, and Setha. Amy, having been an indentured servant, and Setha, having been a slave, find that they relate and understand each other in their life experiences. Amy is the one that gives Setha the will to continue on her escape, and in return, Amy is able to share about her dreams to Setha, and Setha even names her child after her. However, this friendship is not fully redemptive. Amy encourages her, but only walks alongside her as she calls herself to safety. Amy does not alleviate all of Setha's suffering, but she does help with a great deal of it. The dynamic works even if it isn't perfect, as Setha is able to develop her own strength that could have only been brought on and encouraged by Amy in that moment. Another example of this can be seen in Setha's and Ella's relationship, where they relate and understand each other because they have both been enslaved and abused by men in the past. Ella, thinking of her own experiences with her dead infant, leads a group of supporters to help expel Beloved from House 124. However, this support didn't come so easily and it was not always there. Ella, quote, understood Setha's rage in the shed 20 years ago, but not her reaction to it. Ella dumped her and wouldn't give her the time of day. Despite initial disdain and judgment for Setha's infanticide, the community does come together to support Setha in the end. Ella, starting a movement to expel Beloved, was also necessary in the solution and healing process for Setha.
So, since Setha and Beloved are both connected by the same moment, Beloved still carries the pain of having a parent that held her throat, and Setha carries the pain of being the one who held it. Their love becomes a kind of prison for them. And Barbara Shapiro talks about this further in his article, The Bonds of Love and the Boundaries of Self in Toni Morrison's Beloved, where he writes that love in this novel is both sustaining and consuming. It can give life, but it can also trap you. Setha clings to Beloved because she wants to reclaim what was lost, her daughter, her past, and a sense of stability. But that obsession does not lead to growth. It just keeps her stuck in the singular moment. Shapiro explains that the relationship sits in this really unstable space between redemption and destruction. It's not fully harmful, but it's not fully healing either. It's love tangled with trauma, which then creates a toxic mix. So we literally see this in how they change physically. The bigger Beloved got, the smaller Setha became. The brighter Beloved's eyes, the more those eyes that used to never look away became split with sleeplessness. Beloved cries till Setha fades. It might look like Beloved is the only one benefiting in this relationship, but in a way, they both get what they want. Beloved gets revenge, and Setha feels like she's making up for what she did wrong. So even though the friendship leans towards destruction, it's not entirely destructive. It exists in this complicated middle space where love and trauma are so intertwined that they can't be separated. Their love is very powerful, but it does lead to a tragic end where it leaves Setha fighting for her life. Another powerful but ultimately destructive form of love in the novel is the protective love Setha has for her daughter Denver. Harry Caesar explores this in his article Slavery and Motherhood in Toni Morrison's Beloved, where he writes, Setha's maternal love, shaped by the trauma of slavery, is both a source of strength and a destructive force, a response to an oppressive system that has brutalized and dehumanized her. Setha's love was not born from freedom or joy, it was born from trauma. She wanted to protect Denver from the pain she had endured herself, but this love, instead of being liberating, becomes suffocating. Setha's trauma makes her overprotective and keeps Denver trapped inside 124. So while Setha thinks she's protecting Denver, she's actually suffocating her with her love. She traps Denver in a house haunted by grief and guilt, which makes Denver lose her independence and identity.
As mentioned before, Setha is willing to do anything for her children, but her overwhelming devotion becomes suffocating not only for her children, but for herself too. Her identity is consumed by motherhood, leaving little room for self-discovery. As Demetropolis explains, mothering can extinguish the developing self of mother. This quote highlights the idea that motherhood can be fulfilling and meaningful, but it can also be all-consuming, sometimes to the point where mother may lose sight of her hope for time. This type of similar struggle is also reflected in Wanda's journey, as she struggles between her power and the deep longing for motherhood. Her grief drives her to create an alternate reality in WandaVision, where she lives an idealized life with her children, even though they aren't real. This highlights how motherhood, while meaningful, can also overshadow one's sense of self. Not only that, this can also be seen in Subway's work, Love Is or It Ain't, In Love Ain't It All, which reflects her unwavering belief in deep, all-consuming love. To her, love must be absolute without hesitation or restraint. This perspective shapes her relationship, particularly with her children, as she loves them so fiercely that she is willing to make extreme choices to protect them. This intensity blurs the line between care and control. Her devotion restricts both her and her children's independence. Morris uses this to question whether love should always be absolute or if it can allow freedom, especially if that love does more harm than good. This idea of love doing more harm than good is essential to Satya's suffocating past, where her lost daughter beloved becomes a symbol of her pain. Satya's intense devotion to beloved consumes her to the point where she loses herself and her other relationships. We can visually recognize characters like Beloved in other media, embodying the same trauma that affects Sata in the novel. An example of that is Max running up that hill scene in Stranger Things Season 4, Episode 4, which mirrors the emotional and psychological struggle.
Take that hope from Max. There's a reason you hide from them. You belong here.
Want a letter? We're right here. I'm right here.
In the scene, we can see Vecna choking Max, which mirrors the suffocation of Sophie's past due to the beloved. Both Max and Sata are trapped by trauma, unable to see a future ahead of them. Xenophilos explains that even after slavery, Sata never imagines her own future. Morrison reinforces this when Sata reflects, claiming herself was one thing, claiming ownership of that free self was another. Although she is no longer enslaved, her emotional wounds keep her trapped in the trauma. Both Max and Sata experience a psychological imprisonment. Max is trapped in Vecna's mind, reliving her guilt and grief, while Sata is trapped in her past, unable to move forward. However, just as Max's friend played her favorite song to help her break free, Sata's healing begins when she reconnects with her community and Polly, who reminds us that she is more than her trauma.
The coexistence of redemption and destruction within these friendships underscores the complexity of human connection. Redemption allows characters to reclaim their identities, while love entangled with trauma can suffocate, control, and even harm individuals. We see this in Amy pushing Seta forward, Ella freeing her from Beloved, and Paul D helping Seta face the past. Morrissey's Beloved teaches us that true connection isn't about perfection, it's about resilience. It reminds us that friendships are not static, they evolve, fracture, and rebuild. It redefines friendship, showing that true connection is found not in idealized bonds, but in the willingness to endure, to heal, and carry forward despite the past. Is that very exciting? And thank you, Dr. Miller.
Thank you. Please take questions to the end. There will be time. Our next group will be Lynn Hong, Jenny Wan, Christine Yu, and Kyle John.
Hi! Oh, that was loud. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn, and I'm here with my three teammates, Jenny, Kristen, and Kyle. Today in our presentation, we'll be discussing Black nationalism and integration, escaping the ideological bubbles created by societal constraints. So to kick things off, we'll show you this brief clip from a movie called Rio. I'm sure you've heard of it before. I want you to pay attention to how Blue, who if you don't know, is the blue bird, to how he's feeling and how he's reacting to a situation.
But first, we gotta bust you out. Yeah, I'ma pop that cage open like a soda can. No. You call that pop? Whoa. This thing will bust.
No, guys, really, I'm fine. The cage is great. Love
cage. Shoot yourself. Hey, don't forget, love hard.
Oh. So notice what Blue says about the cage. He says it's great. He loves it even. Now I want you to create a little mind map. What do you think of when you see a cage? You might think of being trapped or being unable to escape. Isn't it then interesting how Blue finds comfort in it? This idea of being comforted by being constrained is what we'll explore today through our thesis text, Song of Solomon.
Okay, so Song of Solomon, if you haven't read it before, follows our protagonist, Milkman, or Makindet III, on his journey to uncover his erased family history, all the while grappling with complicated friendly and familial relationships. Within his family, Milkman is tormented by his father's desire for wealth and his mother's desire for love. Within his friendship with Qatar, a poor orphan, Milkman is forced to face the struggles of Black people in a white-dominated society. It is actually through this friendship that we realize that Milkman and Qatar are each caged by their respective beliefs and their ideologies. Milkman, by virtue of his upbringing, believes that Black people should assimilate into white society, which is known as integration, while Qatar believes that Black people should establish a separate community from white society, which is known as Black nationalism. Their faith in these ideologies is so strong that they become almost ignorant to the fact that there could be a second answer to racial equality, which suppresses them like the cage did to our bird. However, while Qatar remains trapped, Milkman escapes from this metaphorical cage and achieves flight through a leap of faith at the end of the novel. Today, we argue that Milkman and Qatar are each only truly free when they're able to take flight and enter the suspended in-between state, in which there is no superior ideology between Black nationalism and integration.
We reach this conclusion by exploring the historical context surrounding the book, identifying Black nationalism and integrationism within the characters, and analyzing flight as a symbol via the final state of the book. So first up, we have to establish what is Black nationalism and integration. Through our extensive research, we found that Black nationalism at its core is an ideological movement that is centered around the Black society, separating from the white society to create a self-reliant and autonomous community to achieve racial equality. It is usually characterized by a strong bias against white people. Integration, as we researched, is the movement that believes in cooperating and assimilating with the white society by adopting their values and beliefs to gain easier access to resources that they otherwise would not have. In fact, this is directly mentioned by Milkman to Qatar, where he says, quote, "You sound like that red-headed man named X. Why don't you join him and call yourself Qatar X?" End quote. Now, Qatar X may sound familiar to another historical figure we know, Malcolm X. Now, as a background, Malcolm X is a key historical figure in the civil rights movement who believed in nationalist principles. Unlike Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X did not believe in elevating Black social standings through integration. Rather, he became a voice for those who wanted equality by any means necessary. Knowing this, and that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. were the faces of their respective civil rights campaign, it makes sense that their argument has become synonymous with this ideological debate. This directly parallels Qatar and Milkman's conflict, as Qatar frowns upon Milkman's passive attitudes toward Black struggles and chooses to take drastic actions himself instead. Because of this difference, we can conclude that Qatar and Milkman are representative of the Black nationalist and integrationist movements, respectively, and thus continues our argument on which is the superior ideology.
So let's begin with Qatar. Qatar appears most as a nationalist when he tries to convince Milkman that his cause, which is killing one white person for every Black person dead, is justified. In this quote, he asserts that every white person is capable of murdering a Black person, and that, quote, "there are no innocent white people," end quote. This phrase suggests that to Qatar, every white person is the same, because they're all made from the same mold, no exceptions. His hatred for white people hinders his ability to distinguish good from bad and makes him indifferent to the crimes that he commits in his pursuit of justice. His bias against white people is so strong that he believes that they are, quote, unnatural, end quote, enemies that must be overcome. Notice how Guitars is overcome in this quote, which shows that he had internalized this distinction between the Black community and the white community, effectively creating an in-group versus out-group mentality that affects his interactions with other people. It is this subconscious belief in Black nationalism being this pure ideology that drove Guitar to murder others and believe himself in the right for it. In that way, Guitar is caged by his belief in Black nationalism, blinding him to the immorality of his actions and thus the ways in which he wrongs others. Guitar, through his ideals, thinks that he is separating himself from a larger society, when in reality, he's just creating another cage for himself.
Now let's look at Milkman, Guitar's best friend and the protagonist of our story. Before we delve into Milkman, let's examine his father, who's a crucial influence in his early life. Milkman's father, Macon III, is financially well off and has built a life for himself and his family through a home rental business. In addition, he's described as cold-hearted and motivated by self-interest, as demonstrated through this quote. He wouldn't lend me a dime. If he had, he would have died a rich man instead of a fair-to-middle one. His father's obsession with personal capital has to do with his association of wealth with higher status. This is primarily where his integrationist values come in, as gaining access to mainstream resources becomes a means of upward social mobility. Although there isn't one specific moment in which Milkman speaks to integrationist values, his belief in them is evident in his response to Guitar during their confrontation, in which he says, "You're going to kill people?" Now, as we previously discussed, Guitar emphasizes the white in white people, highlighting that they are fundamentally different and separate from Black people. Milkman, however, only refers to them as people, highlighting his integrationist ideologies that agree with interracial cooperation and seeing society as a functional whole. Milkman then adds, "And knocking off white folks changes their slave status? Am I going to live any longer because you all read the newspaper and then ambush some poor old white man?" Here, Milkman stands against Guitar's ideology, condemning his hateful acts against innocent people. Integrationists like Milkman are for working within the current system in order to achieve equality of status. He not only criticizes Guitar's strong deviance from the mainstream, but also the futility of his actions. Milkman emphasizes that Guitar's killing of random white people isn't going to help them achieve racial equality, nor is it going to help them gain more resources as Black men living in America. Seeing as his experience and perspective differs from Guitar, this is the cage that Milkman was put into from a young age, then reinforces himself. Like Blue, as we discussed in the beginning of this presentation, Milkman becomes so comfortable and familiar with this cage that he chooses not to come out of it, allowing himself to stay trapped instead of attempting to escape. While both Guitar and Milkman's ideologies are flawed, both of them believe their respective ideologies to be true and absolute, and this is what causes the clash in their friendship.
Finally, we get to the final scene of Song of Solomon itself, where the entire story culminates in a dramatic standoff. In this final scene, Milkman is perched high on a cliff, while Guitar is in a valley below. Their difference in physical elevation here may imply that Milkman's integrationist ideals are superior to Guitar's nationalist ideals. But after Guitar kills Milkman's aunt, Milkman jumps off the cliff, and the physical distance between the two starts to close. This rapid closing of distance also symbolizes Milkman's rapid character development throughout this final scene, where it completes a full circle moment throughout the book, where both ends of the book use a flagpole's teeth to describe Milkman's life. At the beginning of the book, Milkman is only a toddler when he finds out that he does not have the ability to fly, evidenced by this quote. To have to live without that single gift of flying saddened him and left his imagination so bereft that he appeared dumb. Contrast that with the final scene, though, and we finally get to see Milkman gain the power of flight, not only physically, but spiritually as well, as we see from the very last line of the book. For now he knew the one shouting market. If you surrender to the air, you can ride. Ultimately, because the book ends on a cliffhanger, where Milkman and Guitar are about to face off, it suggests that there is no right answer to this ideological debate. Although there may not be a clear winner here, something else is clear. As soon as Milkman decided to surrender himself to the air, He was able to find what he truly wanted, a sense of purpose in life and freedom from his birth. Think back to Blue from the beginning of this presentation. He was perfectly content inside his cage, but by the end of the movie, he's able to see how free his life can be once he finally leaves that cage. Both Blue and Milkman realized that being open to different perspectives allows them to realize their full potential and do things that they never thought possible. Only by breaking free, if you think about it, we're all trapped in our own cages in some way. If you think about it, If you think about it, we are all trapped in our own cages. Only by breaking free from these cages can we advance as a society and change for the better. We hope that this presentation has inspired you all to do the same and escape from your own cages.
Good job, good job. I think we have time for questions, and I'm afraid to turn this thing off. Questions for either group? We have one.
I have a question for the first group. What made you choose Stranger Things to connect to your novel? What made you choose Stranger Things to connect to your novel?
So in Stranger Things, in season 4, we see Vecna being the force that is the trauma and makes people relive the trauma. And it's really similar to Beloved, how she comes alive to basically bring about suffering to step up. So the two are very similar in how they affect our parents.
Other questions?
Hey, second group. From a modern day perspective, do you think the struggle between Black nationalism and integration still exists, particularly, post the Black Lives Matter movement? How do you think this fits into our modern day context?
So we based a lot of our presentation and paper on our research that we read. And I think it is applicable because the article that we read discussed the role of assimilation in the debate over Black nationalism versus integration. So how does it, play a role in which ideology you may be inclined to? And I think that this is very applicable to movements today even, because there definitely is a spectrum, like regardless if you share race or ethnicity, there's going to be a spectrum of experiences that different individuals have. And so how many of you would say that you're fully fluent in your mother tongue? Like, raise your hand, fully fluent. So like, maybe half the room, a little less, right? I think that as Americans and our parents or our grandparents or ancestors, probably at some point, we're all immigrants to this country. And I think this debate over Black nationalism versus integration is very prevalent because it's a question of survival. how do we survive? Are we going to take up these American values, integrate into their system, their schools, their values and beliefs in order to climb up higher the social ladder? Or do we want to preserve our sense of identity and belonging with our racial and ethnic groups? So I think this debate is still very applicable today to answer Professor Lacker's question, and I think it is something very interesting to think about.
Time for maybe one more question. If we can get there, I mean, if you can project.
Go ahead.
Fabulous.